and all the time. I had the privilege growing up of being able to tune into Channel 9, WGN. And I know that I can remember going to London, so I'm sure you had it in Berea, Carl. When I was a kid, I could go to London and we could turn it on, visit my grandmother there. WGN. And one of the best things about WGN were those late night movies. Kids today, they'll never appreciate what it's like. You know, you can flip on Netflix and watch anything, or Hulu, or Peacock, or Paramount, or whatever, right? You know, you got YouTube, you can watch it. But back then, very limited, right? But one of the genres of movies that I really loved were the prison movies. The Great Escape. I can't tell you how many times I watched Ain't No Man Able to Eat 50 Hard-Boiled Eggs. What's that from? Cool Hand Luke, remember? And old George Kennedy tapping Paul Newman's belly. Oh yeah, processing nicely there. I'm no football fan, but I did watch Burt Reynolds, The Longest Yard. See, I'm old enough now, there's a remake with Adam Sandler, and they're probably ready to make another one. I never feel like I'm pronouncing the name right, but Papillon? You remember that one? Dustin Hoffman, the thick glasses, Steve McQueen in that one. Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. Every time I see Paper Mache, I think of that movie. That was a great movie. How could you not love Shawshank Redemption? That movie was amazing. And every day, you know, he's walking through the yard, you know, shaking his pockets, getting rid of all that, you know, where he had dug that tunnel. Let's see. Green Mile, right? There's so many great prison movies out there, and we're fascinated by it. We're captivated for those 2 or 3 hours, but who here would really fantasize about just living in prison? I watched a thing on this prison in Kentucky. I don't remember what part of the state it was in, but it was in such a remote area that they encouraged the prison guards to just stay in a cell during the week and go home on the weekends, and psychologically it ruined them. They couldn't distinguish between themselves and the inmates, and it was a horrible psychological experience for them. Who would stay in prison on purpose? If you could be released, why would you ever stay in prison? If you have your Bibles and you want to read along, I'm going to be in Psalm chapter 142 this morning. And it's going to come to the conclusion of what probably needs to take place to be released from prison. And you know that the Psalms are mainly written in poetic language, lots of metaphor, lots of imagery. So when the psalmist is talking about a prison, the psalmist here is not talking about a literal brick and mortar, brushy creek, iron bars, walled area. That's not what they're talking about here. With my voice I cry out to the Lord. So look at this plea for protection, right? Very vocal, very persistent here. With my voice, verses 1 and 2, I cry out to the Lord with my voice. I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. It reminds me of 1 Peter 5:7. Cast all your cares, cast all your anxieties on him. Why? Because he cares. You know, people are always, not always, but sometimes people are like stumped. I really don't know what I could pray about. I wish I had a deeper prayer life. I wish my prayer life was better. One place to start is, I've got problems. And these problems are bigger. And I need someone who cares, who could take care of it. And God cares, right? Verse 3, when my spirit faints within me, when we're hurting, we're going to feel alienated. We're going to feel alone. We're going to feel isolated. And this is what leads to the prison cell of our own making, right? When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. The path where I walk, they've hidden a trap for me. Verse 4, look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me. No one cares for my soul. I'm trapped. I'm hurting. I'm wounded. Prisons by design limit you. Now, I understand, what's the guy's name? Tiger King? I can't remember his real name. No. Now, I understand he has his access to Facebook. How is that prison? I don't get that. If you can get online, you're not in prison. You know. But prisons by design, they limit, they confine. A prison is for punishment. It's to correct you. It's to teach you. But if we'll be honest, we probably ought to stop and think, probably ought to ask ourselves, what are some of our self-made prisons? What are some of the prisons that we make that prevent us, and this is really the big issue, that prevent us from living a full, abundant Christian life? Jesus says in John 10:10, I came that you may have life and life to an abundance. But we imprison ourselves. We are shackled souls that need to be unshackled. What are some of the prisons that we build around ourselves? The prison of power. Trying to hold sway over other people seems to feel good for the moment. Being able to have people call, to be able to have influence over them, to be able to dominate them, to be able to control them. That prison of power feels good. But it limits, it confines, it controls you. Because now you're controlled not by your desire to serve God, not by your desire to love others, not for your desire to live a full life, but to hold people in captivity. Howard Hughes, the guy that built the Spruce Goose, right? Rich family, they came up with those drilling bits for drilling oil. Once paid a guy to stay in a hotel until he called him, and he never called the guy. Because that's how weird he was, right? That's power, right? Okay, I need you to stay in this hotel. I've got an important message. I'll call you. You just wait there. He just sat back and left the guy there for months. That's twisted. That's not power. That's a prison. A lot of us fall into the prison of perfection. I have to be perfect. I have to do everything right. I can't make any mistakes. And we go through life punishing ourselves because we can't live up to a standard that no one can live up to. And that prison confines us, dominates us, controls us. So you could call it perfection, you could call it pride, Pharisaical, whatever. We think I'm going to follow every religious rule. I'm going to do everything right. And if not, well, I'll get to what that leads to in a little bit later. The prison of perfection is in cell block H. The one right next to it, H for hell in case you couldn't figure that one out. The one right next to the prison of perfection is perception. How many people are trapped by their concern of what other people think about them? I'm telling you, that prison of perception will drain the life out of your soul. Always worried about, oh, what do they think of me? You know, what do they think of my kids? What do they think of my home? What do they think of the job that I have? You know, will I ever be accepted? I'm not perfect enough in my perception. I want you to see me like this. And it dominates every thought, every control, every action, every decision. You're just, well, that prison of perception is really close to the cell block of the prison of the people pleaser. People go through life and they're not worried about their own joy. They're not worried about their own fulfillment. They just want to go around and make everyone happy. The prison of being a people pleaser. Do you know what that one does to you? Causes you to hate and resent those other people. If you think it's healthy, well, Craig, what's wrong with wanting to please other people, right? Jesus washed people's feet. Aren't we supposed to be a servant? What's wrong with being a people pleaser? You're lying all the time. You're telling people what you think they want to hear. You're giving them a false image of yourself, and you go to bed hating them and resenting them. Because you can't be yourself. All you're worried about is pleasing them, and you know that you... Do you see what a vicious cycle that is? That's like the end of Shawshank Redemption. You remember how he escapes? What's he go through? Yeah, a sewer line. But you never get out of the sewer line when you're always trapped in that. I think each one of us has spent time in solitary in the prison of our past. Past mistakes, past failures, past betrayals, past wounds. I could stand up here and talk for 6 hours straight without catching my breath and tell you what a pathetic life my parents lived, because nothing ever happened for them after 1962. They stayed trapped in the past. I love Tobe Smith. You guys remember Tobe Smith? If you didn't get to know Tobe Smith, you missed out. Worked at Eastman for probably 120 years. He was in World War II for at least 20 years. Right? That 4 years of his life defined everything. I mean, he walked the soles off of those boots over there. I think he fought, what was that German guy in the desert there? They called him the Fox. Rommel. I think he fought him hand to hand. Maybe even knocked his eye out or something. I don't know. I love Tobe Smith. Tall tales. It's great to listen to people who live through experiences and they can share that history with you that you can't get anywhere else. I'm not talking about people who had glory days. I'm talking about people who are trapped by the past. They're imprisoned by their past. You cannot go back and undo yesterday. You can't live in today. You won't have a hope for tomorrow if you are in the prison of the past. Whether it's something you did to yourself, you did to someone else, someone did it to you, it's in the past, it's gone. Let it go. Past mistakes, poor choices. Basically, it's just chronic woundedness. Basically, you're just a victim. And that's no way to live. That's not why Jesus died on the cross. That's not why God created you. He didn't create us to stay trapped in the past that we can't change. That prison of the past, it shares a hallway with the prison of pain. Some of us walk around perpetually wounded, whether it's because of toxic people, whether it's because of health issues, whether it's because it just hurts to live at times. Again, that one's right next to cell block H. Who wants to live in hell and then die and go there? We're created for more than being prisoners of our pain. 18 more prisons and then I'm done. Are you ready? You could probably dream up a whole lot more. The prison of performance. I've always got to be on. I've always got to be acting like I'm a good Christian, good person, good dad, good neighbor, good coworker, whatever. I got to perform to earn your love, your acceptance, to gain your approval. Peer pressure. That's not just for teenagers, is it? Always wanting to conform, always wanting to be accepted. Pursuits, prisons of pursuits. I'm always chasing something that never quite will fulfill me. Any emotional incarceration we find ourselves in, guess who the jailer is? Myself. You look in the mirror, you are your own jailer. No one is keeping you behind bars. The end result, and we could probably brainstorm and come up with 30 more emotional, spiritual, psychological prisons. The end result, the final prison, is the prison of privacy. Because you lock yourself away from the world because you are so unworthy, unlovable, unacceptable. You're trash. Obviously, I'm trash because I'm stuck in this prison. That's where we end emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, if we don't get out of these prisons. We end up in the prison of privacy. The walls are impregnable. We can't get out. We're trapped in here. We're surrounded by our memories, our emotions, our pain, our problems. And we bought the lie. We perpetuated it. And we're good at Christians at selling that. You know, if only you did fill in the blank, God would love you. And you can fill in the blank, and churches are notorious for, if only you had this gift, if only you gave that gift, if only you walked this path, if only were burdened by guilt and shame. And when you're so despicable, when you're so desperate, where's the hope? How do you even bother calling out? That's where the psalmist is. They are in the pit of despair. How did we ever get here as people anyway? As people of God, people with Scripture, how did we ever end up in all of these prisons? We bought the lie. There's a false teaching that goes something along the lines that God only loves you when you're perfect. He only loves you when you're strong. He only loves you when you're smart. He only loves you when you're productive. He only loves you if you're good enough. Then He will love you. I believe Christendom has suffered because of that lie. God's love is unconditional. But we bought the lie that we were going to earn that. How do I know it's true? There's too many polite Christians out there. Y'all are not that polite. Y'all don't have it that together. It's called the church mask. You put it on. I'll walk in the door, you'll walk in the door, your office, your grocery store, you're running to people. How you doing? No, you're not. No, you're not. I know I'm not. Maybe I can only speak for myself. We put that church mask on. We're polite, which you start to believe the lie of that mask. You look in the mirror and pretty soon you're thinking, well, I do know more than this other Christian or that other group of Christians or that group at Hog Wild. They had what's coming to them. Good thing that building got tore down, right? Right? I'm better than them. I'm smarter than them. Even though inside I'm wounded and I'm hurting. But I can pretend I always have it together. I haven't watched Dr. Phil in 10 years, but he has a mantra that I think sticks, that works. How's that working for you? Right? I don't know if he still says that or not. People will say, well, what are you doing? And he'll, ask them, and then they'll say what they're doing. He goes, well, how's that working out for you? How's the church mask working out for you, that prison of perception, of having it all together, of being perfect? If you come back next week, I'll tell you how to break out of these prison walls. How do we break out of these prison walls? We're our own jailer. We're trapped by all this garbage. What's the antidote? What's the key? How do we get out? I'm going to give you one to spell it because I'm terrible at spelling, but I hope I can pronounce it. You want to know what the single key is to breaking out of your prison? Do you want to know? Vulnerability. That is the key. See, that's the paradox of the Christian faith. The strong, the weak are really strong. The stronger you try to pretend you are, the more calcified that prison cell becomes around you. I love the album. My favorite album by Pink Floyd is The Wall. Most people don't realize that's just a metaphor. Roger Waters singing all those songs, he's building an emotional wall around himself to keep out the pain of the world. You know, his dad, at least in the album track, the dad dies in World War II, right? It's just all a bunch of pain and misery. How do I get out of that wall? I can't make it stronger. I become vulnerable. That is the key. Confess my weaknesses, confess my problems, express myself. The sooner I let down my guard, the quicker I no longer guard my prison. I cry out to you, verse 5, O Lord. I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry. I am brought very low. That's not someone that's, I'm strong, I'm smart, I've got it all together. Look at how great I am. I'm brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Listen to the beauty of verse 7. Bring me out of prison. Again, this isn't a brick and mortar prison, right? It's metaphorical. It's poetic. I'm trapped. Bring me out of prison that I may give thanks to your name. The righteous will surround me, but you will deal bountifully with me. May we spiritually have the wisdom to be bold enough to allow vulnerability to unshackle our souls. You know, hell, if you read in the Bible, is described as a prison. When you look in like Peter, 1 Peter, when you look at book of Jude, gloomy darkness, chains of gloomy darkness. And I'll say it again, who wants to live in hell and then end up going there when they die, right? I don't want to live in hell now. I don't want to live in hell then. I think the best path then out of these prisons is to quickly, steadily, steadfastly allow God to be God. Allow Him to be the one who rescues us. Because if we live our lives as victims of circumstance, we are not living our lives as victors in Christ.